I'm Hannah from the Bangor Public Library. I just wanted to say a quick hello and thank you for joining us this afternoon for another of our joint programs with SCORE Northern Maine. Today we're going to be having Alison talk to us about responding and requesting online reviews. So I will hand it over to Donna from SCORE to tell a little bit more about Alison as well as about SCORE, and we'll get going from there. Go ahead, Donna.
Thanks, Anna. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm from SCORE, and actually a couple of my colleagues, Dan and David, are here as well. And SCORE is an organization that provides free mentoring, business advice, both for people who are thinking about a business, have a business, or want to grow their business. All you have to do to get a SCORE mentor, we have over 100 people in the state of Maine with all kinds of expertise, is go on score.org and request a mentor, and that's how we get started. So without further ado, I'm really excited about having Alison Lane here to talk with us today. She's a business advisor with the Maine Small Business Development Center. And I think the really great part is that Alison was a small business owner. So I think she really speaks with some really hard-won knowledge in terms of the work that she did before she started to become an advisor. So with that, Alison, we're looking forward to the presentation today.
Thank you, Donna. Thanks, Hannah. Well, I appreciate you guys having me. I think this will be, I have done this webinar for an audience before, and it's always kind of a fun one. Like, I know sitting in front of a Zoom screen can get pretty dull pretty fast. So I think you'll enjoy this little bit of a different topic, not super dry. So we will jump right in. I'll talk a little bit more about my organization and just give you sort of a deeper intro and how you might want to use me in the future. That's on one of my slides. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And if anybody cannot see the screen or has any trouble with my audio or anything, please just throw something in the chat and Hannah will interrupt me. So today we're here to talk about what I call stirring the pot with online reviews. If I can make my slide change, there we go. So first, just some housekeeping, how I like to do business in these webinars. Hannah said it's being recorded. You'll get the recording after the fact. So if you miss anything, you can watch it again. We'll be sending out the slides. So there are some links in the slides. So if you want some more information, you'll be able to click those links and go there. Or if you miss anything, so that way you don't have to worry about trying to take too many notes while you're sitting there if you don't want to. Please stay muted throughout the presentation. Throw something in the comment if you have questions. Like I said, Hannah will interrupt me if it's something urgent or sort of a quick answer. But otherwise, I think I'm going to kind of wait till the end to answer questions. This webinar doesn't tend to be one with like technical questions. It's usually more sort of situational specific questions. So I want to make sure to get through the slides and the content before we dig into that stuff. So please put questions in the chat if you'd like, and we may be able to do some verbal stuff at the end where you can come off mute, but I am easily distracted, so I don't want to go off on any tangents or have squirrel brain happening. So just to give you a little bit better idea, so I am a business advisor with the Small Business Development Center. I typically work in Penobscot and Piscataquis counties, but we do have advisors statewide. That's the picture of my team right there. What we do is similar. So we are an SBA, a Small Business Administration resource partner, just like SCORE. You may have also heard of the Women's Business Center or the Veterans Business Outreach Center. So the four organizations all offer, we're all sort of on your team. We are on your team as far as offering assistance to you starting and running your small business. And our services all vary, sometimes slightly, sometimes significantly. So we like to say there's no wrong door to come knocking on. So reaching out to any of us or even more local resources like Hannah at the library, don't hesitate to ask for help from any of these resources. But what I do at the Small Business Development Center, I spend more than half of my time one-on-one advising with people who are looking to start businesses or people who are already running their businesses, or maybe somebody's looking to buy or sell a business. We're kind of here for the entire duration of from planning to finish. We're generalists, so we do a lot of talk about business plans and helping you find funding, maybe helping you communicate with lenders to get bank loans or write business plans. We do a lot of help with numbers because business owners don't always enjoy the number side of it. So we pride ourselves on being able to fill those skills gaps. So we kind of cover a very broad range, and we work with almost all industries, like I said, across the state of Maine. And we leverage our other resource partners like SCORE. I know a lot of times clients come to me with industry specific questions, and I'm more of a generalist. So I might say, well, I don't know, but let's connect with a SCORE advisor that has a background in that industry. Personally, my background is in food service. I owned a small cafe and bakery, ran it for 3 years and sold it. So I've been through sort of the gamut of the planning, getting funding, running the business, and then exiting the business on a much smaller scale than I know many of you are doing. So I do have a little bit of that entrepreneurial spirit in me. And now I find it fun to work on the other side of the coin. So happy to answer questions about either what I do or what we're about to get into right now. So what are we going to do today talking about reviews? We're going to talk about where online you should have reviews, why bother doing online reviews, how do you ask for reviews, how do you respond to the good reviews and why should you respond, how do you respond to the bad reviews or the spam reviews and why is that important? And then at the end, we're going to go through some examples, some good and some good, some bad, and some very ugly examples of how people have responded poorly to reviews. So those are kind of fun. So we're going to start. I promise this is going to get more exciting as we go, because we're starting with the sort of very dry stuff. Where to be collecting reviews online for your business. Many of you probably heard of the sort of top 3 basic general places: Facebook, Google, Yelp. There's also very many industry specific places, depending on what your business is. If you're a handyman or a plumber, Angie's List is sometimes an option. If you're travel related, you're a hotel or a car rental, TripAdvisor is a good one, Open Table for restaurants. So there's a lot of industry specific ones too that may or may not be a fit for you. There's some other sites like the Better Business Bureau and Glassdoor that are different kinds of reviews that we're not actually going to talk about today. So, for example, Glassdoor is about reviewing employers or employees who are seeking jobs. We're not talking about that kind of review today. We're just talking about if you're a for-profit or nonprofit business, getting the public to publicly say how they felt about their experience with you. That's what we're talking about, not employees and reviews, and not even sort of Better Business Bureau territory. And then there's also testimonials, which we're going to kind of touch on today, but not go too deep. Testimonials are sort of like a deeper version of a review. It's where you actually get your sort of loyal customers to give you a little bit more in-depth about their experience. Sometimes you'll see like video testimonials where people are talking about how great an experience was. And testimonials tend to be all good. And those tend to be what you snag and you put on your website to help highlight, help have other people highlight what you do that's good. But we're talking about reviews, which is where you put it out to the public and you get good, you get bad, you get ugly. And there's a zillion places where you can get reviews. Hence this thing. Please do not be taking notes and start trying to write all of these down, because there's only one thing you need to keep in mind as far as which of these sites do you need to collect reviews on. You need to be where your customers are. You don't necessarily need to be where all of your customers are. Maybe everybody's spending some time on all these sites. No. You're going to pick a few and you're going to do them really well. You're not going to try to be everywhere. So where are your customers hanging out? Well, there's some data. Like I said, you'll get this PowerPoint. So if you want to look at this a little bit more in depth, but generally Google, Amazon, and Facebook tend to be the top 3 places for collecting reviews. Now you'll see like Amazon is relevant if you're an e-commerce business selling products online. If not, Yelp would be your number 3. Doesn't mean you need to be in all 3 of those places. It's just kind of if you're looking for some general guidance. You might find in your industry, Angie's List is a big one and you find you want to be there. So the step 1 is sort of picking where you need to have a presence. And I would say, rule of thumb, have a presence on at least 2 of these. Maybe Google and Facebook are good starters. Maybe 3, but don't go too crazy, because the more places you're trying to collect reviews, the less reviews you're going to have on each of those places, because people can only spread their wealth so much. I mean, you might get someone that gives you a review on 5 different sites, and that's like a really top tier customer, but there aren't going to be very many like that. So why? Sometimes I like to start with the why, but I figured reviews, this is a little bit self-explanatory. Whether you're in business or you're not, I'm sure you've poked around the internet and seen reviews for different places. I'm sure some have made you angry. I'm sure you've read some trying to decide, where do we want to go to dinner tonight? Let's read the reviews. So I know you're familiar with reviews, but let's touch on why, as a business owner, you should be seeking reviews. So some statistics, and there are links to my sources if you want to click any of that blue text, but 79% of customers trust online reviews as much as personal recommendations. So people are putting their trust in what they see on the internet. Imagine that. 9 out of 10 consumers read reviews before making a purchase. It's a broad statement. I'm sure there's certain industries that are more, certain industries that are less. So keep in mind, take that with a grain of salt. And product pages with reviews experience 3.5 times more conversion. So that means people seeing things and converting to action, making a purchase, doing something as a result of just seeing something on your website. That's what a conversion, that's what that means. So why? Well, establishing credibility is sort of the big obvious one. Another survey found that positive customer reviews make 73% of customers trust a business more, and 57% of customers visit a company's website after reading positive reviews. So that's interesting. It's seeing a positive review is driving them to take action and dig deeper. Reviews are also a great opportunity to interact with your customers. And for you marketing gurus out there, you know that it often takes many touch points for people to actually remember that your business exists. So they say, like, I think 7 tends to be the magic number. You have to interact with someone 7 times before you become top of mind and they start to take action. Sales is a very patient activity. So reviews are just another opportunity to interact and be memorable for these people who are overstimulated in everything in their life. So you have to be present. You're not nearly as important to them as you think that you should be. Reviews give you feedback, tell you what you're doing wrong, tell you what you're doing right. You do have to, there's going to be a lot of one-off things. A lot of people that want you to do something that you say, well, most of my customers don't care about that, so we're not doing that. But if you start seeing consistent complaints about a certain thing in reviews, you need to ask yourself, well, this is obviously important to my customers. Should I do something about it? Many of these sites have a star rating. Oftentimes it's like 5 stars. Sometimes at a glance, if you see a business only has 2 or 3 stars, you don't read the reviews, you just move on to the next. So keeping your star rating in good standing so that people continue to pursue information is important. Ironically, a couple of years ago at the SBDC, one of my colleagues noticed that our Bangor Google My Business page, there's 2 of us that work in the Bangor office, so we have our own Google My Business page, and our star rating was like 3.5, and we had 2 reviews. And I felt instantly sort of guilty because I don't know if I'd done this webinar at the time, but here I am telling you all to go out and get reviews, and meanwhile I was not taking my own advice. So I did some of the things we'll talk about later in the webinar to seek some reviews and to ask my clients to put nice things. And within a couple of days, my star rating jumped from like 2.5 to like 4.5 with like 20 additional reviews. So I, do as I say, not as I did up until a couple of years ago. And then search engine optimization, which is all about getting your business found on the internet, which again is an overstimulating place. Getting good reviews makes you look credible enough to Google that Google's going to show you to more people. So when people are searching for the keywords and the key activities that are related to your business, getting yourself on that first page of Google, because you know how fast people click when they're scrolling the web. Reviews are just another kind of like interaction, just another opportunity to prove to Google that you're viable and that they should be showing you on page 1, ideally the top of page 1. So this may not, like me a couple years ago, reviews may not have been something top of mind. You know, you're obviously very busy and you tend to deal with sort of putting out fires on a daily basis. So maybe you have kind of been slacking and you really don't have a whole lot of reviews. Or maybe you're doing okay on Facebook, but then you look at your Google page and you've got 2 reviews. So if you'd like to start asking for some, it's not difficult. Figure out, you know, which platform are you focusing on? And again, you don't want to try to be everywhere. You got to make it really easy for these people that you're asking. So a lot of times that's, you know, a quick email that includes the link to where you want them to go. Ask them for one at a time. Don't send them a link to Facebook, a link to Google, a link to Yelp, a link to OpenTable. Like, no, they just give them one, making it real easy. Careful, you know, you can't bribe them. So you can't ask them to leave us a good review and we'll do this for you. It is okay to do something like encouraging them to post a review or incentivizing them to post a review. Just be careful with your language that you're not saying a good review or a nice review. You can't tell them what kind of review to leave. If you have a physical location, and so alternative to sending out emails, but in a physical location, you can give them, you know, putting a sign up, telling them, hey, you know, go on our Facebook or our Google or wherever and give us a review. It really helps us out. Or if you're really technically inclined, doing some sort of a QR code that they can scan right there in the store and come up to that website, that would be awesome. Strike while the iron's hot. So depending on the nature of your business, if you've just interacted with a customer, you know, maybe you're a marketing company and you just launched their website, don't necessarily wait to ask them for a review right away. You can send them the link and say, hey, by the way, you know, glad we finished that task. You're live now. Can you tell us how we did? For example, after this webinar, you'll get a link in your email that says, give me an evaluation or feedback form. And so that's me striking while the iron's hot, hoping that you all will tell us how we did today. And then keep in mind what you're asking for. So reviews, asking for reviews, asking for feedback, asking for surveys, those are all very different things. So you kind of have to figure out with reviews, it's really about you're getting other people to publicly attest to your quality of product or service. So like it's all about the PR behind it and letting your other customers know you're doing great. Now, feedback I tend to think of as more of a private thing. When I had my business at one point, I did a feedback. I called it an anonymous online suggestion box where people wrote me, they left me feedback, but it was not something that got posted publicly. And I got a lot of really honest stuff because sometimes people leaving reviews hesitate to give the bad because they don't want to be mean. Sometimes people are the exact opposite and they want to be mean, but I got some negative feedback that I don't think my customers would have left me in a public review because they didn't want to damage my reputation at all. So sometimes feedback is valuable too, but typically not as public as reviews. And then surveys or interviews allow you to dig in deeper. So maybe there's a particular issue you've identified about your business and you want more information. So that would be where you'd go into like a survey or some sort of an interview situation. So just keep in mind what you're asking for and, what is it that you want? And if the goal is for public attention, public understanding of what you do, then reviews would be the way to go with that. I think it goes without saying, but there are some legality issues. So, you can't pay people to leave your reviews. You can't bribe people. Don't get fake reviews. Like, I think this goes without saying, but if you want more information, there is a link on this slide. So here's a great example of how to ask via email. So this person made it personal. So they said, hello, Sarah, it was a pleasure doing business with you. Thank you for being a loyal customer for 3 years. So they used Sarah's name. They acknowledged that they realized she's been with them for 3 years. So now Sarah feels she's continuing to read the email because she's like, oh, I'm kind of important to these people. They care enough about me to acknowledge that. They explained, what the purpose of the email was. They were brief, but they just said, reviews help us. Can you do this? They use the term feedback again. I think it's sort of I know I just said there's a difference between reviews and feedback, but sometimes, so I guess watch the language, but feedback is a nice sort of friendly term. It might have been helpful in this email to, I know they just explained people rely on online reviews, but it might be helpful to say something about the feedback will be public after you post your review. And they included a link again, so this Sarah can just click the link and immediately get to where they want her to get to. So they didn't give her instructions on how to get there. No, they gave her the link because our attention spans are all very small. So we need something to just click and get it done. I often like to put in an email, can I have like 2 minutes of your time? I like to tell people how long it's going to take so that they don't think you start doing a survey and it's 20 minutes later. But if I say, please just give me 2 minutes or 30 seconds to answer 2 questions, sometimes I think that helps make people click as well. I've mentioned Google a few times. So when I mention Google in your Google page, what I mean is when you search for something on, if somebody searches for your business name on Google, there should be, if you have a Google My Business page, it's the box to the right of the search results that pops up, and it gives sort of some pictures, it gives your address, your phone number. If you have a physical location to your business, you should absolutely have a Google My Business page. Not so much if you're just e-commerce or if you're based out of your home and you don't want your address public, that's a little bit different. But if you have a physical brick and mortar place, you should have a Google My Business page. It actually, I say Google My Business, they've changed it. So now it's called the Google Business Profile. It's one and the same thing. It's just Google remarketing or whatever to confuse us. Some links here about how to get started with it. Google will also send you some free like stickers and stuff so that you can put that in your shop to get people to go to Google and review you. But it's pretty quick and easy to set up. And it's, even if you don't have reviews on it yet, it's a helpful tool for people at a glance to know what your business is. And it's free. So there's that. So let's shift a little to talk about responding to reviews. Sort of why is this important? 97% of consumers who read reviews also read the responses from the businesses. So people are reading those comments that you're leaving. 45% of consumers say they're more likely to visit a business if it responds to negative reviews. So that's interesting, is that customers are sort of respecting the fact that you're acknowledging negative reviews. It's pretty suspicious if you get a bad review and it has no response. It's like, well, aren't you going to, defend yourself or at least acknowledge that you did something wrong? Or it's a little bit suspicious when it's negative and there's no comments. So long story short, respond to all of your reviews, or most, if not all of your reviews. And we'll talk in a minute too about doing it fairly promptly. I mean, maybe it's once a week you go through and respond to the reviews that were posted that week, but I wouldn't stretch it out any further than that. We try to do it within a 24-hour period if you can. You can't often remove reviews unless they're truly spam. So don't, bother trying. Sometimes you can use your response as a way to mitigate what was said in the review, but don't necessarily think that you can just remove any reviews. Keep it professional. We're going to dig into this, especially with some of the examples I have for you. Stay on brand, but stay professional. Be brief. Again, some of my examples are going to show some responses that were not so brief. And be genuine. I mean, they know you're a business and you're trying to save face and maybe you're trying to make a sale and whatnot, but just, keep the language, be human. They know you're human. So we'll start with the easy stuff, and that is responding to good reviews. Keep it short and sweet. Be appreciative. Personal. So I like to often include the person's name, thanks, Sarah, or thanks, whatever, so that way there's nothing sweeter than like hearing the sound of your own name. I don't know that I agree with that. Like verbally, it's different, but when you see it in writing, it just feels nice. If you have the opportunity to kind of welcome them back, like, thanks, Sarah, for coming in. We appreciate your feedback. We look forward to seeing you again. Bam. That's all you need to say. And I say this carefully, but you may have the opportunity to make an upsell. So this is only if it's genuine. You know, if Sarah came in and she bought a washer dryer. I bought a washer dryer a couple weekends ago, so that's a great example. Bought a washer dryer from me. Maybe I go in and leave a review that thank you, I bought this washer dryer, it was great. And maybe they have a complimentary product, like, most of our customers who buy that also love this. But again, you want to be careful. This is not really a marketing opportunity. This is just sort of an exchange and appreciation. But if there's something that you truly think the customer would benefit from also getting from you, it might be worth mentioning. The harder thing is responding to those bad reviews. And step one is to, definitely wait. If you're stressed about it, if you're angry, don't do it when you're heated. Take a deep breath. As a business owner, you really shouldn't do anything when you're feeling emotionally, any decisions you make, take a breath. That said, if you can respond quickly, maybe 24 hours or within the week, it's sort of along with striking while the iron's hot. You don't want to let it sit and simmer for too long. Be genuine, but also professional. You don't want to sound fake. There's a balance, especially if you are really salty about whatever the person said. So genuine, but professional. Apologize once. Someone taught me once that if apologizing over and over again does not make the apology any deeper. Apologize once, and then if you can mitigate the issue, and this goes for anything in life, if you can mitigate the issue, do it. But, and this is a little off topic, but whenever I get to this bullet point, I tell this story. It has nothing to do with online reviews, but it's just sort of a life lesson that's also really funny and entertaining. I was out to eat at a restaurant once, up near Sugarloaf Mountain. I was with my dad for the holidays skiing, and we were at this restaurant eating, and I grabbed the ketchup, and it was one of those screw-on tops, and I went to shake it, and beside me was a half wall between me and the table on the other side of this half wall, and the cap of the ketchup flew off over the half wall and onto the table on the other side of the half wall. And of course, there's someone sitting there naturally, and it was a man with a laptop, and the ketchup landed on his keyboard. And it was, I'm mortified. I was like 17, and so anyway, so I apologized to the guy, and he was clearly upset and just sitting there kind of trying to clean off his laptop and like mumbling profanities, but like not really talking to me, just trying to clean his laptop. And I kept apologizing. And as we were leaving, my dad said to me, he goes, apologize once. And unless you're going to buy the guy a new laptop, you don't have to keep talking unless you can do something to mitigate the situation. Maybe you can advise him on how to clean the thing. Okay. But apologizing over and over again does not solve the issue. So back to it. Same goes for online reviews. Just give them the one sincere apology. Empathize with the situation, validate what they're feeling, that you understand. If you do, don't be ungenuine. Again, if there's something, if I could have bought the guy a new laptop, offer to do that if that's a realistic solution in that case. You may need to get some clarification. You may want to continue this dialogue with this person to understand how you can do better next time. There's some rules of thumb along with that, like if you respond to an online review and then they respond again, anything beyond that should be taken private, move to a direct message or an email or a phone call. You don't need to have this whole conversation in front of all the world to see on this review. Sign your name. I always find it helpful when people say like, they write their response and then they say, Alison, manager. So then, or Alison, owner. So they know, oh, it's like the manager, the owner, or the administrative supervisor, like just so they know who you are, who your role is. Keep the initial reply short. And again, don't keep this conversation going. Be brief as far as what's public. And then if you guys need to engage in more conversation for more information or more apologies or remedies, take it private. And then sometimes, if you mitigate the issue and some time has passed and you want that person to update their review, it's not very common situation that you can mitigate an issue to the point where you can get them to come back and say good things, but maybe you can. So keep that in mind. So how do you respond to the, not necessarily bad, but like the sort of unusual, more spam, inaccurate reviews? So keep an eye out for it. So this one, this example on the screen is not a spam review, but it's not a bad review, and it's not accurate. So this person has, the business had not opened yet, and this person just published that they were upset that the menu wasn't, that the information wasn't live yet. They hadn't opened yet. So to me, that's not fully, it's not inaccurate, but it, you know, how do you respond to that? And I would say in that case, inviting them, like acknowledging in your response that you're not open, because that way anybody reading this that may be confused will now see your response that says, you know, I'm sorry you feel that way. We're going to be opening on February 1st. We invite you to come check it out, and we'll have our menu posted 2 weeks prior to that or whatever. So sort of clarifying, sometimes that's not even about mitigating, not about helping the person that left the review, but clarifying for anyone else that's reading that review and may be confused. This was one I actually got when I had my business. There was a business across the street that had just started selling pizza, and the person said their response was a good one, you know, friendly owner, can't wait to try the pizza. And I immediately knew that review was not intended for my business. So I responded and, you know, said, thank you, but they may have confused us with, and I gave them the name of the business that I thought they were referring to. I didn't want other customers to see that and think I was going to start selling pizza. True spam, if it's like bots, I know on the SBDC site, we get a lot of bots. And you probably, as you're reading through people's reviews, you see those, like they have nothing to do with the business at all. You can get those removed. So, and there's different policies. Every platform, every website has different policies. So a couple of links here for Facebook and for Google Business Profile. It really is, it's in their best interest to keep the reviews quality. And I say quality, I don't mean good, but just keep those spam reviews off their site. So it is in their best interest to help you remove them. Not always so easy as it seems like it should be, but they do want to help. And then here's a link to a blog that talks a little bit more about fighting spam and reviews. So let's get to a few examples. So here's one, brief review. It was for a fitness facility. Awesome place to get fit, very motivating and supportive staff, highly recommend. So great review, right? So the owner responded and said, you know, thank you, person's name, we're so happy to have you. So they replied, in general, they replied and they were appreciative. They kept it short and sweet. 10 out of 10. Easy, straightforward, simple. Took the owner probably 2 seconds to send that. Here's another one. Traveling through, great wrap for me, lovely strawberry salad for the wife, friendly owner, recommend highly. The response, thank you for your review. So glad you were happy with your experience. So again, just genuine appreciation, short and sweet. 10 out of 10. So here's a bad review. Someone had bought cheesecake, got sick, was questioning the amount of time that the cheesecake had spent refrigerated within the store. So the response, I won't read it all. You can read it if you want to. It's on the screen. You know, we deeply apologize. You had this bad experience. They explained a little bit about their dating process of the cheesecakes. They apologized twice, which remember I said was not super helpful. And then at the end, they say, we will report back what we find out from our vendor. We'll private message you to get some information to get them a full refund. So let's talk about what they did, good and bad in this response. They apologized. Good. Number one. They took action. So especially because this was a quality and potential safety issue, action is super important. And they offered that they continued conversation privately. So that way they offered a remedy so that they could get them a full refund, but they didn't need to keep exchanging comments on this public thread. All in all, 9 out of 10. You know, it's a little lengthy, but it did require a little bit more explanation than those responses to good reviews. A little bit over the top. They deeply apologized twice, which might be taken as less genuine, but they, you know, so solid showing for a response to a bad review. And this is just my opinion too. I mean, like anything on the internet, I'm giving you my reasoning behind these reviews, but I am not, you might say, oh, I think that's great. I don't think there's anything not genuine, or I think that's, they should have done that. You know, everybody, I am not the, you know, the deciding factor on quality of reviews. This is just my opinion. So here's a fun one. So this is a business, long story short, they got a bad review and the owner responded with this very long, it even goes beyond what I could fit on my screen here. You can see that they continued, there's 12 comments between the business owner and the person that left the bad review. So like they just, this hole just kept getting dug and dug and dug. And I'm a consumer reading this and I'm kind of like, I got popcorn. I'm like, oh, this is fun. But I have zero respect for this business owner after reading even just the first paragraph of their response. And so will I patronize this business? Probably not. I don't really want to support someone that speaks in this way, even if the customer was 100% wrong. So anyway, there was this whole saga, which was really entertaining for me to read, but not what I would recommend any of you do. They were very condescending in their response. So this business owner did not take a breath before they responded. They were very condescending. They weren't professional. And it just kept going on and on and on. So no, they get 1 star on my front because they did respond. But honestly, it probably would have even been better if they'd just not said anything. So let's take this back a little bit shorter, a little bit lighter. So this was Jimmy John's review. Good one. Their response, I'm all over it, Judy. Send me your address and phone number to facebook@jimmyjohns.com so I can gain your trust again. On brand. So the language that Jimmy John's used, I don't know much about Jimmy John's. This was just one I found on like a Google image search, but their language, I'm all over it, Judy, was kind of, you know, casual, like it was on brand, but still professional. I don't like that they didn't apologize or acknowledge that they did anything wrong. I mean, they did say, so I gain your trust again, but I feel like an apology would have been good. And they agreed to take action in a private message, so the conversation would not continue on this review thread. So pretty solid, 8 out of 10. So some key takeaways. Hopefully I've convinced you that reviews can be very powerful and also pretty easy to get and not super hard to keep up with responding. You can probably respond to 10 reviews in 5 minutes if they're mostly good. Some of the bad ones take a little bit more thought, but they're powerful, but you have to ask for them. With the exception, you know, nowadays, if I walk out of a store, my phone will often ask me, what did you think of Hannaford? And it will have me rate it. And that's great. But a lot of small businesses don't have that geographic, can't think of what the word is, geo something. But anyway, so people's phones are not necessarily going to remind them to review you. So you may need to ask for them. And people are usually more than willing to share their opinion. I mean, it's the internet. And you should respond to the good, the bad, and sometimes the ugly reviews. So don't feel like your job's over when you get the review. Be professional, but genuine. A little easier said than done. But where it comes back to using your resources, if you can't quite figure out the language of how to respond to a bad review, that's where you shoot Donna or me or any of our mentors and advisors across the state an email and say, hey, can you help me figure out the language to keep my public relations in check and respond to this review? So that said, here's my information on this last slide. If you want to request advising, it's no cost and confidential. You can choose my name or you can let it send you to whoever is geographically closest to you. There's 2 of us in the Bangor office, so you may want to work with my colleague. But please don't hesitate to request advising if I can be more helpful, or shoot me an email or give me a call. And we'll take my screen off and see if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Allie. That was excellent. I did see a question come through in the chat earlier, asking, how do you include your branding in the review process? Any thoughts on that?
It's a good question. I feel like as far as whether it's asking for the review or responding to the review, the language is a big one. So I always use the example of, like, I see a lot of breweries that use cheers. So they'll send an email and they'll say, cheers, Allie. And like, to me, cheers, that automatically gives me sort of this jovial, like, oh, this business is a little bit more casual, a little bit more personal. You know, they didn't say sincerely or best or thank you. They said cheers. So sometimes there's going to be certain language in your business that dips a little bit beyond, like a little lower than professional, but starts to get this voice. So I feel like as far as branding, it's going to be in the voice that you use in those responses, in those requests. And it's, for some, it's easier than others. For some, it's obvious, but I remind you all the time, business owners are humans and you're a human, and your customers sometimes forget that. It's okay to remind them that there is a human being behind the person saying thank you for your review.
Yeah. David mentioned that he has a question. Do you want to go ahead and unmute and ask your question, David? I think we're a small enough group that should be fine.
Yes. Yeah, very interesting presentation, Alison. Thanks very much. My question is, for most clients, I ask them for testimonials and I put them on my website. But I think maybe losing an opportunity here if I ask them to give a Google review, then that would help the search engine optimization and maybe put me up in the ranking a bit, rather than people having to delve into my testimonials, my website. So I'm getting the impression that I should be asking for those testimonials in a different way, by asking them to put them in Google rather than just send me an email and I would post them on my website. Is that right?
I think there's a time and a place for both. So I do think on your website, especially with what you do, it's important to have some of those more in-depth positive testimonials that, they have their place and they're powerful. That's really when someone's already come to their website and they're trying to decide if they want to work with you, and they read these testimonials and get a feel for that. So I still think you're going to want to keep doing what you're doing to keep those up to date and keep, a fair quantity of them. But I think separately, and maybe maybe it's different customers, or depending on how broad the customer base is, but you might be asking the same client to leave a review and a testimonial, but you may also completely separate it. I think it is important to also have reviews in addition to those testimonials, because people know when they go on your website, the testimonials are all going to be padded. They're all going to be good, because you're not going to ask a client that you didn't satisfy for a testimonial. So the trust, it's not that they don't trust the accuracy, but consumers know that they're not getting the whole picture in those testimonials. So that's where I think the reviews come in and give a little bit more sort of transparency and honesty.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you, Maddie. Yeah, geofencing. That was the word I was looking for. I knew somebody's got it.
Do we have any other questions? Looks pretty quiet. Donna, did you have any questions or thoughts you wanted to add?
No, I think this was really helpful. And in fact, as I'm listening, it would be nice that everyone who gave reviews also went to this class to kind of understand effective reviewing. And so just as a consumer without owning a business, I'd say that some of these tips were really helpful, because we don't always get good service, and we sometimes get fabulous service or product. And I think it is important. And maybe one question just briefly is, I do notice that a fairly minor percentage of people says, hey, enter review for the $100 gift certificate or whatever. Do you think that really drives a higher percentage of people actually reviewing if there's some potential for them to benefit from it?
I don't know. I feel like asking for reviews, I mean, it's not something, I don't think you really need to incentivize it because it's such a, it's easy, you know, you're just got, so I think you're right. It's not, I don't think it's going to necessarily drive a much better return. Whereas I think it's more, I think convenience and making it easy for people is more important than incentivizing them. So I don't see it done very often. I don't know that I would do it. Unless it was part of like a marketing campaign to really push for reviews. And maybe you're a seasonal business and you wrap up your season and you're like, let's do this final shebang to get some reviews before we, you know, close up for the winter. But I don't think it's hugely, I think most of the time people don't leave reviews because they just, no, I don't want to say laziness, but you just don't click that. So yeah.
I find as a consumer that I sometimes get sort of like review fatigue of, you know, not so much, I think, you know, in the situation you describe, Allie, of like a small business owner writing a personalized email, that wouldn't seem annoying at all. But there are, you know, those big companies that you order something and then you get endless email follow-ups and it's like, you're not going to leave me alone until I do this. And I'm very annoyed. Like,
Yeah.
just let me have this transaction and go on my way, please. Like I would have left a review already if I was going to leave one. So, you know, I think that's a danger too.
I think business owners often fear being like that, but not realizing like a personalized email that's genuine is totally different than the big business that sends you 4 emails within a week. I think people fear being annoying a little bit more than they should. I think small business owners don't realize how valuable they are to their customers. And I had someone once, I was telling him to start writing a newsletter to his clients, and he had a very specialized market. And he goes, well, I don't want to bother people. And I'm like, do you not think your customers want to hear from you? As like, do they not like you? Is that why they keep coming in and buying your products? He's like, no, I guess you're right. Like, I mean, do they want to hear from you twice a day? No, but once in a while, if it's a business they really value. But I have a hard time with, if I go to a small business and I have a bad, like not awful, but just kind of a moderately bad experience. I don't like leaving a review because I work with small business owners and I feel guilty unless it's something like intentionally bad or like the owner was like verbally, like, I mean, there's certain things that yes, but I think a lot of people do hesitate to leave bad reviews too, but that's where private feedback comes in sometimes.
This was really an outstanding workshop, and really want to thank Allie as well as the individuals who came to the workshop today. It sounds like you'll be getting a full set of slides, and I love that you had the data links, you know, for people who are more curious about some of the numbers. I think is terrific.
Yeah, thanks for including your sources. The librarian loves that.
Yeah. Can I just say one thing? You know, I've enjoyed the you know, not just this session, Hannah, but all the other ones in the series that I've listened to either in person or I've listened to the recording later. How do we give you feedback for this? Or how do we give Alison
a lovely
feedback?
question. Well, I usually send out a follow-up email to everybody who's registered, and you're welcome to, you know, respond to that email if there's something you want to share just privately with feedback about the series. I think Allie is going to include a link to a feedback form for this specific presentation in the email that I'll send out either today or tomorrow as well. And the library in general has, you know, a presence on some of these review sites. So I know, you know, people leave us Google reviews. I'm not in charge of monitoring that. Fortunately, that's not part of my job, but it's always nice to get positive feedback for the library programming overall, if you wanted to do that in a more public way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And to just one more follow-up is just for those who are still on. If you have ideas for future topics, Hannah and I are always looking at what's going to be helpful to people. So just send Hannah a quick email if you've got some ideas about topics or speakers. We'd be happy to respond to that because we want to make sure that this is relevant to the people in the business community. So thank you.
Yeah, if you have burning small business questions, let us know what they are, and we will try to find some experts who can come help provide some guidance on those fronts.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for coming, everybody. I'll go ahead and stop the recording, and I hope you all have a lovely afternoon.
Okay.